here for the Conover Plan Board. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the November 10th meeting. If I had a chance to look at the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Following the president, I don't think Mr. Wiggins was listed as president for the meeting on the minutes.
Yes, okay.
There's one correction I saw. You have comments or corrections? Okay, so we have a motion to approve?
Yes.
No, second.
Second.
The Hildebrand, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Minutes are approved. There's no old business. First item on new business, subdivision, Walnut, Northwest, and the Flowers.
Thank you. This is a subdivision that we bring to the planning board and city council when it involves the dedication of right-of-way infrastructure. And that's what we have here. The family owns a fair bit of tract back through here, Flowers family, and they'd like to subdivide that 3-acre tract in blue for a family member. So those kind of subdivisions have to come here and then they go to the planning, the city council. We don't really have a staff report for this because it's just a kind of a minor item, but it's that's what we're doing. We're trying to get that approved, and there's two steps in it. One is to the planning board and the other is to city council. So, any questions about that? Answer. I asked the county not to come tonight because of their situation.
There's no zoning.
No, there's no zoning change.
changes.
No, it's just a move to approve if you move to approve. That's all it is.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Get out of here, second by Mr. Smith, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, motion approved. Next item, rezoning R2008 and 50 property, 3660 Linear Drive.
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, members of the public. Along here. The Talbot County Economic Development Corporation has submitted an application for rezoning of this property. It's got an address of 3660 Liber Drive. However, really access comes from the south to Northern Drive, right past the Walmart. Parcel's vacant, it's pad ready, has a cul-de-sac. There's our 3 pads, the total is 55 acres. The request is to rezone this parcel, this is the color here, in green. This is the access coming in from the Walmart, kind of come down Walmart's roundabout, go around, cross the bridge, 55 acres there. This is a ownership of Talbot County, City of Conover, City of Hickory, Town of Catawba, Town of Maiden, a multi-jurisdiction park. Currently, the zoning there is COI, which is campus office institutional, and the request is to rezone this to what the partnership feels would be the ultimate use, which is a manufacturing site. So the zoning request is for EM1, which is exclusive manufacturing. The exclusive manufacturing zone is established for manufacturing, warehousing, industrial type uses. And its establishment as this district recognizes the necessity of providing and maintaining manufacturing areas which are protected from all the other intrusive uses that can create conflicts. It's not intended to permit in this district any use which would be inherently obnoxious to urban areas, such as noise, odors, smoke, light, dust, or the use of dangerous materials. This area, as I said, the land development plan was developed in 2003. It has this whole area north of Wild Creek as residential. However, changes over time have already rendered zoning that doesn't agree with that plan. As we make changes today, we try to keep the plan updated to our ordinance. So we would recommend also an adjustment to the land development plan to show the manufacturing use in this area. Of course, any rezoning begins with the planning commission, your planning board, and it makes its way up to city council for final decision. So you all are making a recommendation that we move this along. Answer any questions at this time, or we can open the public hearing.
Have any questions?
Looks like we have.
Welcome to the public meeting now for any comments or questions by the public.
Are you asking for comments?
Okay, if you'd like to make a comment, please come to the.
We're only this.
Fine, we're all-
Well, I don't even know what he said.
Yeah, I don't know.
I couldn't hear what he said.
I don't know.
This is in reference to the property behind the solar farm that's across the creek. That's behind Walmart, that's down off of the cul-de-sac down there behind the greenway. That's access from LaBear Drive on the highway or on the county home road side. It's right behind the solar farm. It's just those pieces that are already plotted out back there behind.
What's he asking? Well, about manufacturing, change it to manufacturing. I'm not for it.
If anybody has any questions, so
Maybe the-
approach the podium, state your name and address.
If you can hear me through this right, yes, I'll say a few words.
Okay, but-
Sit right there and tell me who you are.
Okay, please provide your name and address for the record. And,
I am Janie Sigmund. That large piece there evidently is the family's. All right, I read your letters. Now tell me, how can you say what a family cannot do on that property? That property has been in my family for generations.
Which property are you
are you
referring to, ma'am?
discussing here? The highlight, the shaded one or the one? This one or these?
Up above.
This one?
Yes,
The one about,
her property's right in there, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's one corner fix that
And
problem.
I wanna
We're
ask you something.
not, we're not addressing that property right now.
Well, if you change it to manufacturing, will that not mean manufacturing for the rest of this property in the future? It's going to involve ours.
This is, we're not doing anything on anything past and up to the northeast of that green area. So I think your property's a little further north and east, we're not touching that. And that's in the
You're not
county.
touching the green area,
No, we're not touching the area to the right.
and you cannot tell me what I can do or can't do on my property?
You're zoned in the county, ma'am. You're not zoned for the city, you're zoned in Catawba County. Your zoning in Catawba County is R-2009 up here. So that is Catawba County zoning residential.
But if this gets changed to manufacturing, then hers will be the next, correct?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. We can't do anything over there. That's the county land.
if you requested
No, ma'am, it won't change.
rezoning.
It won't change your zone. It won't change.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, you can, if it's manufactured all around those properties that we have walked on, we have enjoyed living on, all of that's gonna change all of our environment around our family.
You would have to request for that to be changed and annexed by the city.
Yeah, we're not bringing anything up to here. We're not bringing anything up to that Sigmund property. It's not part of this.
Just hear what she said.
So, any other comments? I think they heard your point. You're concerned about the zoning change.
Well, tell them what you would like to have on that property in the future, Mother, and then we'll just, but I wanna know what cannot be put on that property in the future.
What cannot?
Which property are you referring to?
This one,
Yeah, on that green property.
Well, not-
Green-
well, it's
Not-
manufacturing.
Not the
We're
green, but up above there, up
Above
above there.
Got no jurisdiction.
We don't have anything to say about that, what happens on that other property.
They have decisions
It
about
does
that.
not, it's Catawba County,
We will never unless it comes into the city.
correct.
And that can only be done by your initiation.
You have to initiate that. We can't do anything. We can't take your land from you.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there is a lot of properties around these counties. Why have these people not bought up these lands that were up for sale? And these businesses, instead of letting China buy them, why didn't they buy them up and leave this alone that's down in here? For manufacturing. Instead of making, manufacturing all around here.
Well, that's what this community's built on, is manufacturing. That's what we're trying to grow here. It brings jobs and good paying jobs for the community.
Well, do you have any objections to people worshiping on that piece of property?
Mr. Chairman, point of order, I suggest we get back to the agenda.
Yes, sir. Ma'am,
Well-
the property.
Well, she's asked a question. If she wanted a worship center on her property at this point, is there any objections that she couldn't?
On the
Well, this
city-
bottom.
Again, her property's in the
Okay.
county.
We can't say.
Yeah, her property's in the
Yeah.
county, this is a city.
Exactly, thank you. We don't have any say over your property up here that you pointed out. We don't have any control over that. We're not asking for any control.
All right, if it doesn't involve my property and it doesn't change anything, why in the hell did you send me letters out telling me what all could be on all around there and what couldn't?
Well, we have to do notification as part of state law. When we're changing city land, this is a good reference.
Yes.
When when there's any kind of rezoning in the city of Conover, by state law, we have to notify neighbors.
Neighbors.
To let people know what's going on, people who touch the property. It's not we're changing your property, we just want you to know what's happening on this side of the line.
So if there's manufacturing all the way around her property, you're gonna say she can still do something else? And
It's
you
her
know
property.
that's
She
not
can do whatever she wants to.
true.
Yeah, it's her property.
We have control over
We don't
county
control your property. We don't, you control your property. It's Catawba County. And what's your name, man? We didn't get your name for the record.
I'm Janice Sigmund Lale, the daughter of James Sig.
Janice Sigmund Love, thank you.
Yes. And God said we also have to leave a inheritance to our children, and I don't expect Conover to come in and try to steal
We're
a
not, absolutely, I agree. We're not-
Now, I've had the experience that people, it has been tried to be stolen trickery, some of these properties, and I wanna make sure it's no trickery going on. Now, we've been told, and you hear on TV, that the majority of the people in this country do not believe God is still alive.
Well, ma'am,
Yeah,
that-
we're way
And I
off.
wanna tell you, he is,
Man, we're way off course.
and
Point of order, Mr.
he
Chairman.
has given me a name for that place, and he sent us down there and told me to take one of my daughters with me. You go down there and worship him.
we need to.
Now, I don't want nobody telling me I can't go down there and do what I want to do on my property.
Nobody's saying that, ma'am, and we need to.
Okay, now, you said you-
Unless you,
I apologize for the confusion, but this is a.
If they send me all these letters, why have they not got any, say so to it?
unless you stand before us and ask for that to be rezoned or ask it to be annexed by the city.
So somebody
You own
is
it.
right.
I mean, we can't. You have nothing to do with it.
Woman, you had your say, and you did good.
Yeah.
I ain't touch your property.
Thank you.
You did good.
Yeah, public comments, pretty good, Scott.
Well, I hope they send me a letter telling me they cannot touch my property. It's already been done.
Good evening.
Hey,
I'm Scott Millar. I'm with the Catawba County Economic Development Corporation, and we manage the property for the Catawba County Property Development Corporation that is the owner of this piece of property. As Mr. Glines talked about, of course, we worked with the multiple jurisdictions of Catawba County, City of Conover, City of Hickory, Town of Maiden, and town of Catawba to develop this. And of course, it's been developed for roughly 7 years. We developed it to market it specifically to data center opportunities. And of course, that would be something like Apple, something like Bed Bath and Beyond, or Facebook, or some of those users. This park has been called the North Carolina Data Campus for those 7 years. And we've marketed it quite a few times to different opportunities. The marketplace for data centers has changed, and the 55 acres that was competitive several years ago toward the data center market, they have tended to start going much larger in size. The project opportunities that we've been able to develop for this site, that we consider this site, have generally gone into larger sites. So that leaves us with a couple of different opportunities to try and fill the investments, or repay the investments that the communities have made in this park, and to fill this property up. Of course, it is a site where large users currently can legally locate. They're big power types of users, and this site has big power and big infrastructure. So the other opportunities that are suitable for this park would be to expand the opportunities for different uses to go into. And that's the reason for the consideration of the rezoning to exclusive manufacturing. I'll say that any opportunity that's developed under this is sizable enough that you all would consider it a conditional use permit. And therefore, any opportunity that comes in front of, that would come before this site would again have to go to the planning board, seek approval, and then would have to go through the city of Conover council to be approved. So there's multiple steps of approval, even if this were to be zoned BM1 as we passed. There have been other opportunities. Some of them set well over $100 million type of investments that we've had the ability to show this site to. Unfortunately, some of the question marks, what we're doing is we're competing with many states often for these big marquee projects. And if there are question marks involved with that process, they're going to go on to the next site that's easy. And so, for example, with this one currently being zoned COI, which doesn't understandably go to manufacturing opportunities, these users will go on down the highway to somebody that's ready for it.
Scott, is it just because they don't understand what the COI is, even though they could do almost the same thing, if not more, on COI?
Yes, part of it's perception, part of it is just the process and the time involved for the changes that would be there, and the question marks that would be involved with the changes to the zoning and the time that's involved. So that's the rationale behind this. I'll be glad to answer any other good questions if you have any while I'm up here.
Just to that point, any prospective buyer seeing the zoning allotments is going to then come see you and ask questions? Or are you saying before they ever ask another question, they're just gonna go off to another piece of property that's zoned in a manner that they understand?
It really does depend. Many times we get cut for reasons that we don't have any idea what they are. Sometimes we don't even know who that prospect is. What we're trying to do is take away as many question marks as we can at the outset, so that we do have a chance to get face to face with them.
Can you speak to what potential, what you call it, commercial concerns, manufacturing concerns that this property would have, I know you can't name names, but have you had customers that this would have been an ideal site for?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to mention that we have chosen to rename this from the North Carolina Data Campus, which obviously is suited directly to data center types of uses, to Lyle Creek Technology Park. And so we're trying to aim for that upper end of the marketplace, not some paper mill or some what I would call heavy industry types of use. What we're trying to do would put in there a compatible use to this area right there, and not a heavy industrial use.
And have there been suitable customers for this rezoning that we've turned down?
There have been a couple of opportunities over the last 18 months that the rezoning would have had an impact.
In terms of ingress, egress through Conover Drive there, I'm just curious, if you go to a site, I guess, would the roundabout have to go, I mean, was that?
There'd have, if it were let's just say, if it were a very heavy trucking opportunity, which I don't see as compatible anyway,
Right.
I think certainly that would cause problems at the roundabout, and we'd have to re-engineer that whole thing. I suspect that any of these would be a part of the process to get rezoned. The company would not consider that to be an easy way in and out.
Right.
So that'd probably have to be reworked.
And whose jurisdiction would that be under, do we work there, that's the city?
Well, it's a DOT access point, so I suppose certainly Conover would be in charge of it. Whose expense it would be, I'm not exactly sure.
Scott, you just mentioned that heavy truck use access, quote unquote. The statement before that you made where you were trying to market away from that. So what I'm hearing is you're saying one thing, but you're still leaving the door open for the other. Where you wouldn't put that terminology out.
I think what I heard him say was that the heavy trucking was an unlikely use.
It was mentioned as an unlikely use, but it was still mentioned.
Right.
So, you
Well,
want to expound on that a little bit?
yeah, I think that certainly there's an opportunity for larger vehicles to go in and out. That would have been the same with the data center opportunities as well. So I think that any intense use, I'm saying heavier manufacturing type of use, certainly a heavy distribution type of use, I don't see it as a candidate for this location.
But again, any of those would have to come before the board again.
All of these, I think the square footage requirement is that anything over 100,000 square feet is required to get that conditional use permitting. Then it would come through you, then it would, well, it come through staff first, then it would come through you, then through city council.
Any other questions or comments? Questions or comments?
Mr. Millar, thank you for your interest in Conover and this project. I think it's a great use, great spot for manufacturing, the infrastructure's there, the road, access to I-40. I don't see any problems with this rezoning personally.
Any other public comments or close the public meeting?
Well,
Yes, sir.
The letter from the church, do you want to read that?
Yeah, thank you, planning board members. I did provide a copy of a letter from Tri-City Baptist Church for your, at your seat, so you've had a chance to look at that. Thank you. They asked that that be included as part of the.
Everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll close the public meeting.
Would you like me to add this to the comments as,
Yes.
to the minutes?
Okay. Any other comments, questions, discussion regarding the proposed rezoning request?
I mean, the only thing I guess that you're really adding to it would be that heavy designation. I mean, the only difference in my mind between the heavy and the light is, I mean, there are some others, but really the outdoor storage, right? Is that outdoor storage is the big one between heavy and light, correct?
That's correct.
Again, anything over 100,000 square feet is going to come back, which is perception.
Yeah, right. Would be conditions on through it.
Just gotta ask, this letter from the church, is this just for the record, or have they made an intent to come and meet with the board, or?
I think this would be like them coming and standing in front of us and speaking their opinion.
Yes, the author of the letter called us to express their concerns and wanted to know whether or not attendance at the meeting was necessary, and we told them at this point, attendance is going to be limited anyway. And if you would like to submit something in writing, we will add it to the record.
I mean, that is something that technically is added by going from COI, that's like the design COI that goes to EM1.
Any other comments or discussion? Do we have a motion?
Move that the zoning be approved.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Powell to approve the zoning, do I have a second?
Can someone read that motion, please?
I'm sorry, yeah, it's in the,
I've had it. You have it, Charlie?
Please.
The motion to approve it, please, going to read
I just go to the old laptop.
it.
My printed
The old, I
out.
was gonna say the old.
Okay, I'm gonna move to approve the rezoning request R 20-08 as shown in Exhibit A, map from campus office institutional, COI, to exclusive manufacturing, EM1, and the adjustment of land development plan to manufacturing, because conditions of change and opportunities for manufacturing uses have expanded. Also found that the request is reasonable and in the public interest because, number one, the rezoning will refocus the site for manufacturing uses, which is in an area of growth for the local economy. And number two, the site is close to the interstate and infrastructure is in place to sufficiently service manufacturing uses.
we have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign?
Aye.
And, Mr. Hildebrand, voted against, so motion carries. Next order of business, we have a rezoning of R 2009 Bell Fox Trust and County Fox Trust property.
Thank you, Chairman. For the planning board members of the public, I do want to say, just to remind the folks who might be in the lobby due to our notice, our numbers, is that we do have a form that if you'd like to fill out public comment and submit it, we can take that from you and enter into the record. If anyone would like to do it, to do that. Thank you.
Just a brief aside, am I the only one that's hot in here? Is it warm in
Yes,
here?
I've never thought. Thank you.
Loosen up.
Trevor gets the face mask.
Okay, so, for your review and consideration is, rezoning request 20-09, which is, two tracts of property owned by the Bell Fox Living Trust and the Conley Fox Living Trust. This site here is the Bell Fox Living Trust. Many people remember the businesses that are located here with Joe Bell's and the Stockyard Restaurant. And also this tract at the rear, which kind of wraps around, this is Conley Fox Living Trust. Properties are mostly vacant today. There might be a kind of a open field and maybe a vacant home on the site. The properties have their primary access from Highway 16. And even though there are two tracts, it's one family land. The properties are under contract and control, and Mr. Wells has provided an application to rezone both properties to general manufacturing, M1 manufacturing. The site in the back, this site here, it's got a nominal address for Smithfield Drive. I guess at one point in the past, somebody who owned that land thought they might extend residential through the neighborhood. But I can tell you that if manufacturing was proposed there and approved for zoning, and then something got approved for development, we would never allow access to come through a neighborhood for a manufacturing use. It's just not, it's not the right size and not the right scale. We wouldn't permit it, okay? So we'll be expecting to use the front side up to Highway 16. So as I said, both tracts, totaling about 122.5 acres in total, have a combination of city zoning in the front, because the city, this is where the city line is, right here. And we have a couple of different manufacturers, a couple of different zonings here. This is MX. We have neighborhood center, neighborhood mix there, and then open space. And in the back, this part is part of a annexation request. And the annexation request would bring this into the city. It's a voluntary annexation on behalf of the property owners, and they would like to bring all that into the city. And it's a two-step process. When you have an annexation from the county, we have to rezone county property to a city zone, and that's what you're recommending the council to do through this review of this application. So as I said, both tracks are asking for general manufacturing M1. As I'll reiterate, manufacturing uses require safe and sufficient access, safe access. The Bell Fox tract, it has frontage on North Carolina 16. There will be a driveway design prepared when a manufacturing use is identified and comes forward. This layout will be reviewed by the NC Department of Transportation to be sure that the design complies with all traffic and safety standards. So there's safety involved and safety review through NCDOT. Also, the Conover zoning code also requires a landscape buffer when manufacturing uses are adjacent to residential areas. And it's an evergreen buffer provided to screen and protect the neighborhood from impact.
Alan, quick question on that. Is there, restrictions on how extensive that buffer needs to be, or is it like one line of trees or
Okay,
especially on how
so
wide that might be?
in general, in the code today, it's a double row of evergreen trees that would be planted offset to one another to make a full screen. Now, if, as Mr. Millard suggested, if a project reaches 100,000 square feet or larger, they're automatically a conditional zoning. So they come back with a master plan or a site plan for you all to review and consider with a zoning change. And so in that process, the developer, whoever's asking for the approval of their site plan, can negotiate with city council to get a bigger buffer, to get a sufficient, a larger sufficient buffer. If that standard buffer from the city in our ordinance wasn't sufficient or wasn't thought to be enough. So there can be negotiation with all those standards when something is conditional zoning.
And Alan, that standard double road buffer is how many feet?
It's about 15 feet.
15 feet.
By the time you all set the plants from one another and down the road, it's about 15 feet, and I would consider it.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the 100,000 square foot project. It's always a conditional zoning. You'll always see it. And we'll bring that forward. This sort of sets the stage for the underlying zoning. So we know the areas of manufacturing district, you do see the largest projects through a conditional zone. That's all I have right now. I'd like to answer any questions if you have.
Now, this property will be contiguous to the one we just looked at.
Yes, let me show you where the one you just looked at is. This is the site we were just studying through the other application, right here. And so these two border, now there's a creek through here, obviously.
It does cut those in half all
It does, yeah.
So the creek, I guess the question about the creek is, would there ever be access to those properties through Conover Drive to the other property? Potentially.
Yeah, there's, let's see. This one has the direct access, what we call Northern Drive, even though Northern Drive is not-
Northern Drive, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then, there's potential someday in the future that something could come across here. Now, it would require the acquisition of more, a little bit more property, to come through here, but, if we had the right project and we felt we needed that direct access to the stoplight, the intersection here, maybe we could work that out. That's on a site plan basis in the future, but it's definitely got potential to cross over.
But otherwise, you're looking pretty much at the Joe Dawes property.
Right, come from the front, that's right. Thank you.
We'll open it up to the public meeting. If anybody has any comments, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. Yes, thank you, sir. Please try to keep comments to about 3 minutes so we can move right along.
Mike Starnes, 1724 Highway 16 North. I'm not against growth or anything about what's being said, but I would like the planning board to really consider, that's Lyle Creek. And I don't know if any of y'all people know what happens in Lyle Creek when it rains. This summer it's out about 5, 6, 7 times. And it turns into a huge lake, river. I'm across the road and I have to deal with Mill Creek. And I'm paying at my expense to keep the creek clean. I'm talking to Dickinson Truck It Now, they have a huge track up. They gotta come in, trees are down up the creek, across the creek from all the floods we've had. We're looking at $5,000 or $6,000 to me to clean that creek and.
You're talking about down,
I'm across the road.
16 bridge down there
Yes, sir.
in that area.
Back toward Conover. But Lyles Creek is 10 times worse. A lot worse. And what I'm trying to, want you to think about, if, as you do this and you, develop this, if money would be, somebody's got to pay to keep that creek clean. The more asphalt, the more concrete, the more buildings you're putting there on this side, makes it a whole, it's gonna magnify the problem even more. Sooner or later, somebody's got to address the problem, about keeping water flowing. That's what I'm doing behind my house with my farm, is get the debris out of the way, water will flow and less chance of getting out of the banks. We're already, with our development up to Hickory, to Conover, coming down this creek, is already so much asphalt, concrete buildings that it don't take a lot of rain anymore for it to get out of the banks. The more you add, the less it's gonna take, which is a very, very harmful effect. Children, adults, anybody gets caught in that. I've had cattle in it. I know. But consider that if it's a fund set aside as this develops, as people buy land or somebody comes in to put up a building, a percentage is set aside into a fund to help that, because it's gonna help Conover. You got a sewer plant right down Lyle Creek. What is NC, North Carolina, what do they say about every time it floods and gets out? That's a direct effect back to Conover. Y'all have to answer to the state when that happens, how much got out, how much pollution was done. Think about that. I just want you to think about it. But it's gonna magnify it even more.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Could we ask Mr. Glines to speak to, I know there's water quality management that's required in the state when there is development. Can you speak to some of that, Mr. Glines?
It's like the sediment ponds are designed to.
Yeah. And I know you're not an all-knowing,
Well,
encyclopedia, but I know there are regulations that protect, exactly what Mr. Starnes was talking about.
Each site when it's developed, it has to address its own stormwater flow.
Stormwater, thank you.
Yeah, so it's based on the impervious, what they're adding to the imperviousness of their site. So on a case-by-case basis, any site over an acre has got to address stormwater. So even, you remember when the Wendy's was approved, remember in the back of those two tracks that were in front along North Carolina 16, there's a stormwater feature that's got to handle the water flow coming off that, what's basically a fully impervious site, meaning it's all paved almost, 80%. So they have to handle that, and then it has to be released at a pre-development rate, and also deal with quality. So we're always doing that. We've had an amazing year of rain, and I agree, it's been hard. It's been a hard one for the city and everybody involved, but it's also been a slightly unusual year. I'm not saying that we don't need to address that, we do. And in fact, we took something last night to council about, the amount of paving we require. And some paving be gravel, and some paving be, sort of more pervious materials. And I've got to come back next time and we got to work on that a little more. Council asked for a little more direction on
Well, thank you. I just wanted Mr. Starnes to be aware that there are safeguards against that, runoff and stormwater when development is.
I've not seen them at work.
Okay, I just wanted to reassure you. We hear you. Thank you.
I'm Jim Sigmund Leon with Jamie, and just the natural. Okay, well, I live on Hermanside Road now, but that is, I'm connected with that property.
That's okay, I was just in the address.
Well, 4080 Hermanside Road, to be clear. And just to mention, like, as we've talked about, all the floodplain, but there's a lot of natural habitat there, some endangered species things, natural springs. This area has been an area that's been used for a lot of naturals, a lot of animals, and like you say, a lot of floodplains, so therefore it wasn't very practical to use for a lot of things. So just keep that in mind. I just wanted to agree with the gentleman that just come before, because there is a lot of natural habitat as well as the natural springs and a lot of things in that area that once you start messing with the water system and the floodplains, it disturbs a lot of things. So I just wanted to add my comment to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any written comments, do you know, if anybody?
Not that I know.
Check it out, sir.
Okay.
Did anybody have a written comment they'd like to submit?
We got, ready to speak?
Okay, again, I'm Scott Malone with the Conover County Economic Development Corporation, and we're not financially involved at all in this project. But this reminds me of the responsibility that we have to create tax base and jobs. And of course, that's what we've been doing successfully here. I've been here almost 30 years. And so the discussion is trying to balance. I'm a big trail runner, and I love trails, and I love waterfront, and I want to make sure that we.
Sure, thank you.
So I want to make sure we take care of the environment as well, but I also want to make sure that we have great opportunities for jobs. And so that's what our responsibility tonight is. During the epidemic that we're facing, a lot of supply chains have been showing shortfalls, or been really problematic. There's a lot of opportunities right now with different manufacturing opportunities. It's amazing the number of calls that we're getting right now for prime sites and ready to go sites. This property is served. The city has spent a lot of money putting in water and sewer, and of course the roads are already existing for the most part. I recognize that there's some traffic issues as well. But so one of the things about this is that these properties are pretty quickly developable and at a cost that makes good sense. I know the Hunsucker properties down the road, up at the other corner of Interstate 40, will provide an opportunity for in 3 or 4 years, most likely, as those develop. But those are not as immediately developable for the same type of opportunity, I don't think. This site could also be an add-on for a data center campus. You remember when I was up a few minutes ago, I was talking about sites for data centers needing more acreage. That could be the continued opportunity here. And of course, that high investment, low impact type of development that we did. And so this sector, the manufacturing sector, has a clear promise right now. And so we've instituted a critical and essential pandemic-oriented marketing initiative to try and recruit opportunities such as pharmaceutical plants and things like that, that ought to be in the United States. Ms. Sigmund was talking about China. We certainly want our pharmaceuticals to be made in the United States rather than China, I know. So that's the opportunities that we see. And I see this opportunity, if it's carefully developed, and of course, reiterating that everything would have to come back through you. I'd like to ask Mr. Glines if they could require additional responsibilities, if you all could require additional responsibilities for runoff or things like that for those opportunities when they come to you next time as a part of the special use or the conditional use permit. So with that, I'll probably use my 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
Yes. Go ahead.
Are these gonna be pad-ready sites? You
Uh,
put the pads on?
I wouldn't expect immediately that there would be the investment made to make those pad ready.
Yes, sir.
Big board. My name is Lynn Starnes, residence at 1714 Highway 16 North, Conover. So just, I would like some form, if possible, clarification, if this is in fact rezoning to anyone, am I getting that correct?
Yep.
Would the ingress and egress be through the Joe Bell's parking lot area? Is that the?
That's the
That's what
plan
they're
at the
getting
moment.
Again.
There would be nothing through the neighborhood.
Correct. And my concern is the other property that we were here last month about as well.
Mhm.
You know, we expressed concern there, safety issues going in and out of the road.
Sure.
Access to Highway 16. It's gonna be the same issue at Joe Bell's, it was whenever Joe Bell's and Stockyard was there. Now what we've done is we have added more traffic flow to the scenario. Big trucks again, pulling in and out. You know, if you've ever, okay, so trucks use that parking lot now. They pull out, you get behind them, it hams up traffic. All right, so the solution is why. So we still got, there's problems there that need to be addressed. Then you have the noise pollution, the light pollution. Is there any type of standards that those are based off of? You know, where is that standard?
Alan can correct me if I'm wrong, but the code, our city code should state noise level and light interference off call.
There's some limitations on light for sure. We look at a parking lot plan generally, which has the lights, or even building, attached building lighting, to kind of look for that. And it's all meant to be full cutoff fixtures that point downward, that don't trespass off the site. That's the whole point of the lighting ordinance. That's what we have in our code for that. The other one is about it does the noise part. It has to be reasonable, and our manufacturing, it tends to start about 7 a.m. Our ordinance kind of covers a 7 a.m. start. So we're not playing all night, and it's not noisy carrying on all the time. So that should help.
I guess there's also some subjectivity to it as well, obviously.
There's some, especially with noise, yeah. But the buffers and other things can help mitigate any kind of noise, or even, flow or access, that kind of thing can help with any kind of noise.
With the other road, North View, does that have access to this property?
It doesn't touch it
Not
directly.
initially.
Yeah, it doesn't touch it initially or directly. I mean, it's not far, and there's some pads here, if there was a crossing or something like that, that could be a future possibility.
Just
I
to
know
Lynn's point, I was thinking if there's two different access points, that,
Yeah.
that would help
It's
split it
really
up.
going to be long, turn down the road much later on.
And I think Mr. Millar made mention of, even we as a planning board could express, concern for and an interest in, using that, maybe an alternative, access, instead of contributing to the traffic. There's already an established major intersection there.
Yeah.
And if we could encourage the developer and or tenant to pursue that.
What DSP did that?
They're involved in everything. They really are. I don't want to make a lot of that, I don't need to, but, even the, on the corner there, the Wendy's, they were quite involved in that.
Okay.
So they talk about, if they need lane widening or turn lane or things like that, they get involved at every step. It's part of our normal review. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another concern is, we're adding all these manufacturing jobs, we're adding these jobs close. I think we're in a job deficit now. With taking this property and moving it to M1, more people are gonna come. So you'll have places for those people as well. And just,
Meaning residential development.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
But not against progress, don't get me wrong. Just needs to be done the correct way. Make sure everybody's thinking the same way for the betterment of the economy. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. And questions or public comment or anyway. So maybe this is a question for you, Scott, somewhat, might be right up your alley. You know, we sat through some discussions, this is kind of to Mr. Starnes' point right there. We sat through, Western Piedmont Council of Governments came and, you know, Taylor gave us a presentation, and I've, you know, heard from different people in the business community about, you know, homes and places for their employees to live and things like that. And that seems to be an overwhelming majority at the moment. You know, we need single family housing, we need this, we need this, we need this. You know, if you look at our land development plan, that's what this was originally for anyway, was for residential, right? Residential development, that's what we've always had it planned for. So I mean, you know, for me, with CN16 getting built out all the way to Ardvark Chevrolet, you have a perfect spot coming down Thornburg. You know, we've had the analogy that, you know, you'll be able to get to Charlotte quicker than you can get, or you get to Charlotte from here quicker than you can get to Matthews to Charlotte. You know, so I mean, are we on that cusp of potentially having, you know, that residential, you know, we don't have too many big pieces of property left to do a, you know, a development. You got the Hunsucker property that's just come open. You have this one potentially. I don't know, I feel like maybe you have some answers around that. I'll probably make any sense, but.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to come to the podium to address that. First off, I'll say you're exactly right, that there are not a lot of big footprint development opportunities out there. So there's a certain recipe that is needed for manufacturing and those larger footprint things. If you look at the new development that the city of Hickory did on Startown Road, Tribune Corporate Center, we announced that in 2018 in July, and by September, we had announced a twin project there, 250,000 square feet. And in the subsequent 2.5 years, there have been 4 international announcements and a large spec building development from an Atlanta development group. So we're always looking for the right mix of location, services, and accessibility for those larger footprint opportunities. Housing can go in a lot of different places. Topography doesn't matter as much to housing development. And so, just like we often say, you don't want a rail site to be used for a non-rail use. We don't really want an industrial site to be used up for housing, but we do definitely need to focus on housing opportunities as well, particularly the low to medium level of housing. Right now, there are 6,000 permits somewhere in Catawba County being considered for residential development. So there's a lot of housing opportunities coming this way. I hope that's curious.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It's more comment for the
Any
record.
other comments from the public?
Yes. Good evening. My name is William Shelley, and I live at 1720 North Carolina Highway 16. Speaking of Tribune, I went by the other day. This is how lit up. Just the Corning facility was there. They actually have multiple facilities. May not look like much, but when you're there, or if it gets foggy, it's significant. It's a lot of light pollution. I do have some questions, especially regarding right here, it's a field house, that's all residential, plus the business there with the nursery. That's a lot of traffic in and out of there. That's going to be the main area for truck traffic or whatever's coming in and out of there. That's a huge concern. And unfortunately, I'm not sure why, none of those residents appear to be here tonight. I'm not sure if they're aware of it, but that should be a huge concern of theirs. So I really don't think it's fair for this to be on consideration if nobody's here to really represent. Another thing, I'm sure it's public record, I know it is, but you know, it'd be nice to see who the property owners are of these properties that are up for rezone.
I believe they're in the record.
Yeah, I think it's that. Don't you have that, Alan?
It's in the record.
It's the Fox family. It's, the Bell Fox, Living Trust,
Okay.
the Conley Fox Living Trust.
Okay. Um, What about, just brought up about jobs earlier, this would bring jobs, having manufacturing in Conover. That's wonderful, we love that. With the pending administration change in the United States, our relationship with China, it could go up or down, we don't know. I know there's tariffs right now on China, that's likely to change. Manufacturing will be right up in China. That's gonna be a huge hit to the United States, I'm afraid. So do we really need the manufacturing capacity here in the United States? As much as I'd love it, and I would love to say yes, I just don't see it. On another point, the data center ship has sailed. I work in IT, I see it all the time, it's not gonna happen. As much as I'd love for it to, because I'd love to be employed by one of those companies, I just don't see it happening. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Let's see.
Why do you not see it happening?
I'm sorry,
Why? Explain to them why.
for the data centers?
Yeah.
Because they're already established, most of them. Apple's continuing building, which is great, and Facebook's what, in Rutherford County, I believe. So Google's in Lenore. What else is there? They're all getting absorbed by each other, so. Data center capacity, when you think about it, a server nowadays is as small as a little tiny computer, and they're in mobile modules, basically. You censor them, I don't really know that they need more and more space these days. Bed Bath & Beyond, their data centers aren't that big. They're a huge company, in my opinion. So, those things to consider. But what I was getting at earlier regarding jobs, how many vacant positions are in existence in Conover right now? Do we have that number?
I don't know.
3,000 said last month.
It's possible.
In DeKalb County?
Cobb County, yeah, well, I heard a figure.
So we have more jobs than we have people to work.
I don't know, it's a balance of qualified workers for the right job.
Understood.
We're about 20,000 jobs off of where, well, when you look at where the pandemic happened and where we are now. We lost like 40,000 jobs in April, and we gained 20 of them back, but we really need like 20 more. So, yeah, it's a rough job.
I understand.
It's
So,
quick now.
right. So my next question, this is probably my final question, is what is all the correlation here, and what initiated the desire to switch this to manufacturing stuff? I know we started with last month, this property here, for this particular section. It seems like all the pieces are being connected here, the puzzle. So,
But is that necessarily a bad thing?
if you're a resident near there, yes, absolutely. We worry about, pollution, we worry about noise, light, smell of manufacturing. I said last month, I work in Hickory near the VA clinic in Greystone. There's a horrible burning plastic smell that comes into our building constantly. And there's a 500-person call center there. That's where I work. What's the risk to us? Our health risk. What's the health risk to all the residents right there? That's concerning. We don't know what kind of manufacturing might go in there. So I think there needs to be a lot further consideration into this and what possibly could come to our area. The residents in Smithfield. I know there was one person that wanted to come tonight to be represented, but the door was locked. She couldn't get in. So, that's not really fair to her. She did knock, nobody came to the door. So, something to consider. I think that this potentially should be either shelved or postponed to a later date. Because I don't think our area is needing this right now. So
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time?
Can I ask him a question and then that'll let me know if I need to come up there?
Yes, I did that. I did not mention that. Here. I think it's important to show that.
name is Michelle Shelley. I live at 1720 North East, 16 Highway. You know, if I lived in Smithfield and Bellevue, I would be very worried about property value, you know, to resell. I wouldn't want to live near that. I would certainly sell. I have a concern if they're going into the old Jodels and Startown Christian Stockyard parking lot area. And there's an intersection right, or there's a neighborhood Bellevue right across the way. How are they expected to pull out on 16? And then you have Blooms, which is right next door to it. How is that going to affect them and the traffic? You know, if a transfer truck pulls out, it's gonna back everything up again. I'm just concerned about the people who live in Smithfield with their resale value. Is their property value going to go down because it's going to be rezoned? Another concern is the Lyle Creek flooding. My husband took the drone out. I took multiple pictures. I have these pictures right here for your viewing. However, my husband had to go to work and I was working virtual online for teleworking. And this isn't even the worst of it. This is 2 hours before the peak. I don't know if you can.
They can put it on the camera over here and put it up on the.
Okay. That's some of it. There's others. Sorry. Hey, Bill,
Yes.
can you come look at this one? I don't know what this is. This is from our drone. Maybe you can explain what that's
So-
at.
So if I can use the pointer. So this is flying over, sorry, okay, so that's Smithfield. It is over this area looking back over here.
Yeah.
So over here, yeah, so this is Hillview Drive over here. I believe that's the water treatment plant, back over here. So that would be where the creek crosses, and of course, backed up all the way over to the roadway there, and this stretch of property as well is just completely flooded now. Mike Starnes can tell you, he's lost a number of hay bales in that parcel of land there. It was what, 48?
Yeah.
Huge brown bales. We don't mess around with that. We get the hay up pretty quickly from that piece of property. So, Shel, is there another picture?
Yeah.
So this here would be on the map, this area right in here. So I know that's up for discussion, I believe it is. I know it's coming up, but
Our 2010, I do believe.
yeah, residential, flood, no.
And that was not even at the peak. That was 2 hours before it hit its
2 hours.
peak.
It came much further out. And it takes a while to go back down.
And I have those pictures on my phone.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
So, this isn't the only time this has happened, as you said last month, this happens all the time. Anytime we get 3-4 inches of rain, in a short period of time. You can see it's flooded back there as well. There's rain too there. And there's not, should be, I think there's another. I'm sorry?
That's flooding back toward the property that they're
It
talking
is.
Yes,
about now.
yes, it is.
Yeah, up to here.
This one is.
Is there more?
Well, I think we get-
I don't know if I can display that. I don't know if I can display your phone on there.
Bill,
It's
Yes.
the same thing.
the bushes that they saw scattered in there,
I
that's
can
about
put it
5
up there,
feet
but I don't know how it's gonna look.
right in that area.
Okay. I don't know if you heard my stars, but that's about 5 feet.
Oh, sorry, it's not as big. That's me standing on my porch, looking across the lake.
Yeah,
That's at its peak. It's not far.
It's very serious.
And it looks like a river. Everything flows really, really fast. Trees, you name it.
I appreciate that information, but just, if there was no decision made on rezoning, that would still be the case, would it not?
Yeah, I think their point is that it would be worse.
Right.
That's what they're trying, that's what they're.
Yeah, asphalt would be runoff.
Now, one thing I will say, for, when we're talking about the traffic in and out and things like that, you know, if it were made to a housing, a big, large housing development, right, you know, you could talk 500-600 cars or more, right? I mean, so truck traffic, I know is one thing, but you're potentially talking, the traffic's gonna be the traffic, right?
Any other public comments for the order?
One other thing to point out to all of you guys concerned is that, in the proposal, there will be a driveway design prepared when a manufacturing use is actually identified. That's part of the information, the background that we will give.
Okay. You want? I'll close the public meeting. Yeah, comments or discussions here? You know, my view is, you know, it's, I don't think anything that you're gonna look at is gonna be perfect, just like it was at the last meeting, but, I've got a little different view on this one. I know again, it's not perfect in all respects. You know, but it's, got an entry into, you know, basically commercial property that, you know, has business use in the past. And there's risk to anything you do in this area. I mean, this development is something that we're probably not to take place for a year or two down the road, we actually saw something come to fruition. And, you know, I don't know what the economic environment would be at that time, nobody does. But I think, you know, the long-term view of having a starting point to be prepared for growth and other housing issues and other things. And, you know, there will be, I'm sure, potential traffic issues, although as Mary mentioned, you know, there's gonna be some design requirements and, you know, a lot of things would have to come before us in terms of conditional zoning requirements. But, you know, like I said, you know, not perfect, but, you know, in my view, you know, I'm in favor of the approval of the rezoning request. And that's just, you know, my view here.
I grew up not far from that property, about 3 miles of it, and I helped Paul Hale 4 years ago behind the old jail house. And one thing I've noticed about the topography, no matter what you put in there, you're coming down and you're looking into a lot of lights if you start with the manufacturing facility. And again, I work for a local manufacturer. I know what the job market's like. We're constantly hiring and trying to hire right now because the job market's hot. Everyone's looking for employees. But aside from that, you still got the same issues this month that we looked at last month. And that is, you've got a neighborhood right here, Smithfield. We also have the same issue with buffers that we discussed last month. Nothing's changed. We also have traffic. The only difference is we're not into this curve like we were last month. As I mentioned last month in the public hearing portion and with our board, we established years ago the commercial and office and institutional zoning districts. We put those into effect to allow for a transition district. Again, this is a transition. I don't feel like Conover needs to have the reputation that, gosh, I'm gonna put a house on a large piece of land, but they're gonna allow me, or they're gonna come around sometime and put manufacturing right on top of me. We've got to look back at why we established these districts, why we had, number one, we took away the fact that we're not gonna put manufacturing on top of residential, but now it looks like we're stepping backwards. 25 years ago, there was an issue on Rock Farm Road with some property that they were trying to rezone from residential to manufacturing. Stood between the Baptist church here and the other side was the Schubert Elementary School. That's when the uproar really started about 25 years ago to start looking at different ways to protect the residents. I just don't want to see us go back to that because it's going to set a bad precedent path forward for those trying to move into this area.
Any other comments?
For the record, I would like to, say that if the planning board approves this, that we support any development efforts to actually connect to the backside of the property rather than Highway 16 and connect to that northern drive, I'm not sure exactly the name, but connect to the backs of the property where it also will connect to the multi-jurisdictional parcel that we discussed in the previous issue, and also connect that to alleviate some of that traffic that it would concern for those residents, the people, the businesses along 16. I think there's a grand opportunity to do that here if this motion actually passes and goes to the council and hopefully it's developed.
The problem is, I don't think the same people own the two areas.
That's true, but I think the parcels that Mr. Law spoke about it's all municipalities. They would see the benefit of that development into the ingress and egress to these properties versus adding to the traffic problems on 16.
What I meant by that is, in order to get to that COI property in the back, there's a bridge already across the creek to get to that property. So if you try to come from that property back, you have to go another bridge to come back, right? It would make more sense to be on this side of the creek to come in, but I don't think that's in, that's, you have to work that out between different property owners and.
Maybe I don't have the best understanding of the topography, but
I think that black line right there, Mary, that runs between the COI and that. This one, I don't know if you can tell what I'm saying, I could be wrong, yeah, that one, I think that's the creek follows down that
Yes, it is.
area.
okay,
It's not on this map, but I think that's right.
so my proposal, you're saying it would require the construction of a new bridge.
That's what
So that would be cost
I
prohibitive.
think, I don't.
That was a comment.
If I may address that, we have looked at a rear entrance there that would be on this side of the bridge that would scoot around. It would require negotiating a purchase from Tri-City Church. It could, I mean, I don't know that they are a willing seller, but, I think that engineering wise, that could happen. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate
It would, if I may, it would likely come around that floodplain area on this side of the bridge somehow into that piece of property. But, that has not been negotiated, so.
That's Tri-City property.
Correct. We have looked at that as a potential.
Can I say something one more time?
We close it on.
Oh, it's listed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm with Ken, to be honest with you.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
I just want to say, I do agree with Ken. I think Ken made some excellent points. I don't think we're going to be establishing any new precedents here, but I do think we need to be careful. I mean, I think we already do have some areas that have manufacturing next to residential, such as Macklin Creek, some of those businesses back up to residential. But with that being said, I mean, Conover is pro-growth. I think that's our mission statement. We're open for business. If we want to continue to be a great place to live, and we are a great place to live, and if we want to continue to be, we need jobs, and businesses will help keep our residential tax rate low. So that's mine.
Not true, some of the same issues in terms of the traffic and things. I do see a little different this time, just in terms of how the property backs around to the backside is adjacent to more commercial uses anyway. And I know the egress is a lot closer to, the interstate there. Than when we looked at last meeting, so. Again, there might be, not perfect, but in favor of that there, but, Anybody make the motion here?
I make a motion that we deny the zoning request. And I'll read the statement and add the other comments to that. And I stand in this because I don't necessarily, okay, here it is. I move to deny the rezoning request R20-09 zone exhibit A from the county zoning single-family residential R20 mixed-use MX neighborhood center, an open space to general manufacturing M1 and be adjacent to the land development plan to manufacturing, and find that the request is not reasonable nor in the public interest because, number one, we are still encroaching on neighborhoods that do not meet do not meet any type of transitional district buffering. We are still looking at the congestion on Highway 16. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, I think we're setting a bad precedent for neighborhoods and residential areas that we can, in the future, in any parcel, come back and put manufacturing EM1 or M1 a button to them, which again contradicts why we set up those traditional zoning districts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Can you show a raise your hand if you know?
Yes.
All opposed?
Vote.
1, 2, 3. Sherman, did I see your hand go up?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
You vote.
I'm sorry.
You got to vote anyway.
Can I see the fours, please? Can I see the fours to deny? Okay.
Okay, so it's not a majority, and so the motion fails. Not a majority, the motion fails. There could be an alternate motion to approve. If someone wanted to provide that motion.
For the record,
I'd like to make a motion to approve. I move to approve the rezoning request R2009 as shown on the Exhibit A map from county zoning, single-family residential, R20 and mixed-use MX. Neighborhood Center NC, Neighborhood Residential NR, and Open Space OS to City of Conover, General Manufacturing M1, and the adjustment to the land development plan to manufacturing because conditions have changed and opportunities for manufacturing uses have expanded, and also find that the request is reasonable and is in the public interest because number one, the rezoning will expand opportunities for one of Conover's key economic and employment sectors. And two, the site is close to the interstate and infrastructure is in place to sufficiently service manufacturing uses.
and state,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Wait a minute, what just happened here? Who made the second, please?
Kirk Field.
All those in favor of the motion?
Favor approving
It has to be a favor, the
In
motion to
favor of
approve,
approving?
for approval.
All opposed?
We'll report that to city council when it moves forward from here. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda. That's the rezoning of R2010 Lot 3 to their property. Lawrence?
We have a request by the property owner, Rock Creek Reserve, to bring that portion of tract D in the back into the city limits. It contains about 14.88 acres. It's in the county currently. It would be rezoned, it'd be annexed with this effort as part of the larger area in front. This is what you saw last month. We're not reviewing that again. It's just this part here. And the request would be to rezone this from a county residential zone to a Conover residential zone. I think the folks provided some graphics about the floodway. It does wrap around here, eyes in the back. That was that river area, stream area right through here. There's a section right here at the top that's outside of that flood. It's not even affected by the 100-year floodplain, and that's what we manage for. So we don't permit residential development to happen in a floodplain, okay? And we require, the county requires that if any development happens in a floodplain, it has to elevate the house, right? So you have to be 2 feet above that base flood elevation, and that's mapped by the Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA. So they give us data, and we manage and map it, right? So any residential development here, which would be a single-family home, because R9A only permits 1 home on a single-family lot. And we have 1 single-family lot proposed here. That's it. So if there's a knoll right here, that would be the high ground. That's where a house would go. That's what we're requesting, is to bring it into the city. This is the most restricted zone we have for residential.
And English egress will be right along the
Yeah.
side of the development there.
They become the side of the development, an easement across right to here.
Could you explain about how many buildable acres that is?
About, probably about 2 acres buildable,
2 acres?
out of almost 15. Because the other area is flood.
So approximately how many, according to residential zoning, how many houses allowed per acre in the city?
But we only allow residential per lot. And this is only, there's only one way, there's 1 lot here that would be created. So it's 1 house.
So, one house.
So we're adding city services.
We're in the back already. We're here at the site. We have water at the street. We have sewer at the back. We do have our sewer plant downstream heading, kind of north and east.
So it's 2 acres and 1 home.
And the county would have a similar challenge with the floodplain. They're not gonna permit housing, let's say, in the flood area. Thank you. I'm answering any other questions.
Was it up to public hearing, any comments, questions from the public? Nope. Very well. Close the public meeting then.
Nobody outside.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Any comments that are suggested to the board?
So there's no outlay of capital on the city's part in
Right.
order to accommodate this zoning, rezoning.
Nothing, I think the homeowner would have to pay for sewer connection and water lines, yes. Which you can't afford. They would have to tie in wherever it is. I think I'm correct in saying that. Make a motion to approve.
You go read the, that says top of it.
Move to approve the rezoning request, R20-10, as shown on the exhibit A map from Cobb County single-family residence, R22 city, Conover single-family residential, R-9A, find the request is reasonable and is in the public interest because the rezoning will facilitate the expansion of the city limits. The rezoning will permit your residential use which is consistent with the character of the site.
I'll say.
Second. Keith, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda, permit report for November.
Folks, we are done with the public meeting portion. If you don't want to be here anymore, we will not have any more rezoning questions or conversation. You're welcome to stay if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
We've got a couple of items, I thank you for your, attending, meeting here, and a few great questions or comments. The zoning permit, we did provide this, and it's a little hard to read, we did provide it in the, and, Eric, are there any highlights you want to point out?
I don't remember.
I know, I'm kind of the same way. We had a very busy month, as you might,
So is Vanguard, they're,
yeah, it's probably like upfits and changes in some of their, materials. We've had a few of those this year. We had, some work at Profile Products. They were doing some work that was required for fire department for safety. So that's been done. R.L. Williams, okay, it's not. Standard furniture, remodeling,
$500,000 house in Rockmore.
Yeah, that's big. Well, it might not be right. It just went to 750. With building prices, it might not be.
1,600 square feet.
Yeah, it might be like a 1,200 square foot house.
yeah, so, you know, we didn't have a summary yet of the whole year, maybe we'll provide it next time. It's kind of interesting. I think it's not been a terrible year from the standpoint of new development and renovations and things like that. We've had quite a lot happening here.
Did y'all put that number request?
it's very suspicious.
Very suspicious. Not sure that's a.
Well, you're taking my tenant.
Okay, and then, I wanted to go over with you, the next item just being the proposed meeting schedule for next year. So usually the last meeting of the year, we try to provide this for you all to consider. We don't have any applications for January, so I'm kind of inclined to say, if we don't get anything, we're not gonna have a meeting in January. So we're almost at that point where we can say, yeah, we're not gonna have anything for January. We might just take a break with COVID and all the trouble. It might just be worth our while to take a little break. But we have a couple questions. You notice in July, our normal meeting schedule will be July 6th. Well, 4th of July is Sunday this year. And usually what council will do is if they follow a holiday like that, they'll move it to the next week. And so Eric and I were wondering if you would prefer to move that to the week following, would be the 13th. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So Eric, we'll change the July meeting to Tuesday, July 13th. And then usually Labor Day's not set, right? So it's like a Monday, and we're probably the next day, the 7th. We don't really care about that unless you do. Labor Day, yeah, we just leave it.
I say let's follow the council so that it's easier for, I mean, maybe people associate council meetings with planning board meetings. I don't know, is that?
Well, there's a helpfulness to be, kind of give enough time to kind of get in front of the council after the last planning board meeting. It's not bad. I mean, we could definitely move it.
I'm okay with what.
Okay. Anything else?
I think November 2nd is a municipal election, but I mean, polls close at 7, we start at 6:30.
Okay. You want to move, would you be concerned?
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It's not an issue to me, but I mean,
Anybody else have that thought about November
it
6th?
is an election.
Are you running for office?
No. No.
I'm not planning board to close.
No way.
Is anybody related to you perhaps up for reelection?
No.
Okay.
You might be working both.
Well, we can always, if it does become an issue, we have 10 months
Yeah, we have
to
time.
think about it.
We try to post this so it's only just for the you know, everyone kind of had a schedule, right out there. And we need to adjust something, we can do that, you know, there's no problem with that. So what I'm expecting is no January meeting, and unless you hear from us, and I wish you all happy holidays, and, I think it's been really something here for everybody. We've done our best with that, and we thank, Chris Snyder for the IT help, that's gonna make all this work, appreciate all those help. So, thank you all. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the tags, I guess that's us.
Thanks for the tag, Steve.
Yeah, the mayor, after all,
Yes, sir.
Connor, okay. So,
So what, the water.